Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. White, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets. So we've got Will and Trevor here today from Dexter Welding, and like I was saying, I actually didn't know that we had a welding company here in Half Moon Bay, but I'm excited to find that out. And I hear all these good things. And what I understand is you have a very interesting story of how you guys got started together, going all the way back to high school. Is that right?
Yeah, we were in college together. We met in college. We went through the welding program through Quest to College. We were in the same class. We realized that we had similar, passions and everything, and went through college.
Where's that? Where's the college?
In San Luis Obispo.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, Quest to College there.
So, Will and Trevor, are you both from Half Moon Bay originally?
No, I'm actually from Ventura, down south, just south of Santa Barbara. And so San Luis Obispo, where we went to school, is kind of the middle point.
Yeah, exactly. So are you adjusting to how long have you been up here in Northern California? Because from a guy whose wife is from LA, I can appreciate Southern California, but we have a different vibe up here, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Growing up coast side, it's very similar. But I lived in Petaluma for a year before going down to San Luis Obispo, so I got a feel for the North Coast and really fell in love with it, and the longer green periods and better vibes.
Better vibe? Well, that's good to hear. It's different vibe, and it's not hot. I think living in Half Moon Bay makes you soft. I don't know about you guys, but like I go to LA and it's 75 degrees and I'm like, I'm out of here, man. This is just hot, right?
Yeah, hard to beat our weather. It's either it stays at the constant temperature kind of. We were actually both just on vacation where it was cold, way colder than we're used to, at least here. But like you say, anything over 75, 80 degrees, I'd want to run back towards the fog.
Yeah, exactly. We want everybody to think there's a lot of fog here. But Will, you are from Half Moon Bay?
Yeah, born and raised in Half Moon Bay. We're actually south of town. That's where our shop is as well, on our family ranch. And I am the sixth generation, I believe, that's been here along the coast.
Oh, well, then I'm like, yeah, there's always the native discussion, right? Like, I mean, I'm married into a California family, so I somehow get it, but we'll never be quote unquote local, but we're as local as we can bet. We've been here for 8 or 9 years, but 6 generations, and your address is Half Moon Bay. You're just south of Labitas Cutoff, I think, right?
Yeah, we are kind of on the border of the Half Moon Bay actual city zone, but yeah, pretty much between San Gregorio and Half Moon Bay, the lower side of Half Moon Bay.
And you have your shop there?
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have our shop here at my grandparents' house, and so we work out of here for the most part in the shop doing projects, and then we'll take a project out. Like if we build a handrail in the shop, we'll build it in the shop, go install it, and then we also do mobile stuff as well. But for the most part, we stay in the shop just because all the tools are there. We know what we have. It's kind of easier just to do something there rather than going and building at somebody else's location. But for the most part, it's shop stuff.
And do people visit you there?
Not really. That's kind of the one thing that we don't have. We don't really have like a storefront. It's kind of by appointment. Like people will drop, trailer or some project off to us, and they'll meet us and see the shop then. But we kind of just have the shop as our location, and then people will come in when they bring their projects and everything. So we don't really get a walk-in per se, but we'll call or have somebody call us and bring their project to us. Yeah.
Now, what has your family done on that ranch for 6 generations besides welding?
Farming. We raised hay for our cattle that we have on the ranch, and back in the day, my grandpa says you could actually make a living off your ranch. So they had a full dairy. They had sheep, cows, dairy cows, all that kind of stuff. But that was hundreds of years ago almost now. But we still raise cattle and raise hay for the cows mostly. And we just raise beef cattle and use them, take them to the sale, and that's kind of how we do our cows.
Do you both live on the ranch right by your?
Yeah, we're right on the ranch, so the commute is close.
That's good for you guys. Now I want to go back to the college thing, because my understanding is that you both were on a team and are like world champion. I think, what is it? National Welding Skills USA National Welding Champs. Is that right?
That is correct.
So how did that was really it sounds like you went to college together and got trained in welding, but that's really where you bonded in the sense of coming up with something together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that was it for sure. I'll let Trevor talk on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of to go back a little further. We both started welding when we were 12, 13 years old, and picked it up and ran with it. And then you get to college level, and you start to learn what you don't know. And I mean, we walked into those first class with a little bit of background. I think it was probably two years of theory and practical learning experience in the classroom. And then we started getting into the upper division classes, where we were building projects together in small teams, fabricating. And we got really good at it. We started to see how we worked together. And then we had another guy with us, Joey, that we progressed through school together. And the opportunity came up to compete. And we dove headfirst into it. And the teacher would take us out of the classroom and have us work on projects while the rest of the class was learning, and we built a good relationship with him. Man, we competed on the regional level, the state level, the national level. These projects are they have a time constraint to them, they have a materials constraint, and then the project itself. It's changed since we left, but it was they give you a certain amount of materials. They tell you ahead of time what it is. You have to design a project that uses as much of the material as possible and build it within a certain time. And then you're graded on the quality of different types of welds, different types of cutting, presentation, your leadership skill set. You take written tests, you do interviews. I think that was probably the reason, or part of the reason why we're in business together. I remember we were in an interview at the national level, and they were asking us, where do you see yourself in a few years? And he said, oh, I have a job lined up with an architecture firm. I was like, oh, I got a job lined up with a pipeline company. And we'll say, you know what, if I could have anything, I'd have the three of us go into work or into business together and start a welding shop. And so I think it evolved from there.
Yeah, so we got Trevor and I, who Joey, to move up here and work with us, which we've talked about it before, but he's got a pretty good job down in San Luis Obispo. But the Skills USA was a huge thing for us to, like Trevor said, figure out how we work together and what strengths and weaknesses each of us have, and that's why I think we work so well together. Trevor's really good with the computer stuff. I'm not so great at it, but I couldn't even get my camera on. But so we definitely have our strengths and weaknesses, and then I think that's what makes us work so well together, and it kind of helps us along with everyday stuff in projects. And then it's also great to have two points of views going into a project. If Trevor designed it in his head one way, and then I kind of designed it in my head another way, and then we can kind of meet in the middle or pick what works best for each of the designs and kind of get a middle ground where everything works out. And usually it works out pretty good.
So I want to go back on the project. It's timed and they tell you different types of welds. Are you making what is it? you make I don't know, a rack. You make, I mean, that's a terrible example, but
no, yeah, that one of the projects was like a shelving unit actually, and like Trevor said, you take the materials they give you, you design it to make the most out of the materials, because you actually get docked points on your scrap or your leftover pieces that you have. So they would just tell you what to make. Like there was a shelving unit, like a job box, kind of like a big toolbox, all out of steel, um, and then you design it. You figure out the best way to use the materials, and then we would build probably 2 or 3 before we actually went to the competition. So we kind of knew, what we had to do quickly or what took the longest, so we can kind of start. So that part of it kind of is like running a business, doing that competition. You have to figure out exactly how you're going to do it and pre-plan everything. And so Skills USA, that program helped us out probably a bunch, and we didn't even realize it. But now that we look back, we can be like, oh man, that was huge to learn, and little did we know that we were actually learning it at the time. So I think that definitely helped out. And then Trevor was, because you get also graded or judged on your plans that you make, able to make all the plans on AutoCAD, and we kind of went off of those, and we did pretty good at that.
In a nod to Cuesta College, we had an amazing professor that just, I mean, he was brilliant, and he just taught us so much. And through that project process, we really excelled as fabricators underneath them.
So you're really good at welding, which is a craft and an art, right? And then there's this whole creativity that says, oh, here's the vision. I'm going to make X. I'm going to make a shelf. Well, making a shelf from scratch out of metal is difficult. There's all sorts of things involved. So how do you go from, and you've touched on this a little bit, Will, but I'm interested to sort of unpack it a little bit more, is that you're both very good at the craft, you're artistic, but then you actually have to run a business to make money and pay your mortgage. So yeah, how does that like leap work?
You want to start? I have some ideas.
Yeah, send it.
So, well, that's generally like if a customer, I guess we'll go back to the shelf. They want this shelf that, has 4 shelves on it. It has to look a certain way or whatever. And this is their, what they want and their time frame. So one thing we look at is time. Sometimes we have a budget from the customer. Sometimes we don't, in which we then have to propose and kind of add up our material cost, add up all of our labor. So we start with that. And then the design process usually takes us, depending on what it is, up to a day to a week on what it is. And then, of course, you have to run it by the customer, and just a number of things that starts adding on to the project. But that's what's funny. We kind of found out doing this for a business, and you said making a profit or trying to make money on this stuff, is the welding is probably the smallest percentage of what we actually do in a day. A lot of it is talking to the customers or designing something. There's days where we do weld a lot, 16-hour days or whatever sometimes, but a lot of it is the background, the business side of the welding, because the welding is the easiest part, but it's getting the business side of it to work with the project. And then once you find that balance, which we're getting pretty decent at, that's the main thing, because there's a lot of paperwork.
Do you have a train station at your house?
Oh gosh, no, that's clients coming through full speed. So keep the phone on, and I didn't get it shut off.
I hear something in the background. Is there music on in the background?
No, I can try to shut the door though. That might just.
But I am interested also in that you craft the project and you've got to make some margin, do you have an hourly rate for your labor and things that you look at?
Yeah, totally. So I mean, it's an all-encompassing deal. We have standard rates for standing, cutting, drilling practices that, yeah, it's a standard rate that we use in-house, or if we're doing field work, mobile work, it varies depending on what kinds of tools are being used.
Okay, so
We
you
do
have
standard rates.
you have a menu that you choose from based on the labor and the equipment and everything that you're doing.
Correct.
Now, as a entire business, do you say, okay, we're going to need to bill X amount of hours this month, regardless of what it is? Or do you say we need to make 10 tons of metal? Like, what metrics do you use to figure out your business so that you know you both make enough? And I think, whoever else, I know you might have a CAD drawing or somebody else, and pay the electricity and things like that.
I think to rewind to the basis of business is we have a business plan, and we built this whole thing based on a plan, and so we have 1, 3, 5 year goals, and so you have a set amount of work that we want to complete by the end of the year, and based on our profit margins, that'll get us to where we need to be. So we kind of check in quarterly, see where we're at, plus minus, adjust. With COVID, it slowed us down there for a minute, but then summer kicked in, and you have a lot of homeowners wanting to do custom work to their homes. They've been sitting there looking at it, and it's like, wow, we went through this little lull, and then a flurry of this, handrail and custom homeowners type work.
So where did you learn to build a business plan?
Entrepreneurship is in Cuesta. Working through that program, you take electives, and I had started a hog business and a livestock hauling business before this, and so it kind of was like, hey, these are the things that are critical to success, or is that business plan, I think.
And do you credit the where you are today with having that business plan? And I assume you built financials. It sounds like, Trevor, you're the guy maybe who builds them out in that sense. Do you credit that to being where you are?
I think it's a lot of variables, but I think that helps keep us focused,
mm-hmm.
and setting those goals and reaching those goals, and and game planning for growth and acquisition of capital. I think that all comes into play, but it's mainly that focus, right? You could do it off the hip, but it's not as clear and precise, and maybe not achieved as fast.
Do you set aside a day, a quarter, when you say, hey, Will and I are going to sit down, have lunch, and look at the numbers and review the plan?
Yeah, kind of. Just kind of every week we'll take a look at projects coming up. We'll look at our invoices that are out, or what's coming up the next month, say, or the next week. So that's kind of like over morning coffee or something. We get to the shop and talk it over a little bit, and then go from there. But yeah, like back to the business plan, Trevor and I both made one separate from each other, and then so we came in one day after we built the plan, and we looked at, like I said, kind of both of our views from our designs and everything, but looked at the plans, and we were pretty close on say the numbers or where we wanted to see us at the end of the year. And that was at the beginning of the year we did our first one. But like we said, of course, COVID came in and kind of threw a wrench in our plans, and not necessarily stopped us, but it's definitely, we're working harder to meet our goals now, just to try to meet them by the end of the year, which I think we could do if we keep it up and keep working hard, because that's what it comes down to, is just getting the work done and getting it done as fast as we possibly can, kind of, but also doing it as good as we can. So
how many years have you been in business now?
I started a little bit before Trevor jumped on. I was doing it for roughly a year, and then since Trevor's been here, we've been almost 2 years.
Yeah,
almost 2 years now. So kind of 3 years total. I got a jump start, and then it was kind of funny. Like we would hang out on the weekends and stuff, and just be like, Trevor, I really think we can do this. And so me and Trevor would start talking, and we started implementing both of our ideas before Trevor quit his last job and started with us. So we kind of had it running, but it was just getting both of us to work full on at it, which set us, on the next level and got us really started. So that part was really cool. And now it's just, like we said, just getting everything done and trying to get paperwork done and then actually getting the jobs completed. But yeah,
I think what do you think was it that you said, Will, to Trevor, that like was like, okay, Trevor, or maybe Trevor, this is from you, like, okay, I believe, right? Because there's a leap of faith here that you're basically going into, I'm going to eat what I kill revenue.
Yeah, totally. I could kind of maybe guess, but when I started, I was kind of doing more repair stuff, smaller stuff. Started to get a little bit more people coming to me for work, and then eventually Trevor, through his work, got us a job, or told them about Dexter Welding, and then I think maybe that was kind of the turning point when we realized that we can get bigger customers, bigger jobs, and do it for ourselves and kind of instead of somebody else. I think that might have been one of the reasons.
Yeah.
But
yes, I came from a corporation, a large pipeline corporation in the Bay Area, and you start commuting an hour and a half to and from work, and you see a business model that's beautiful, and how much work there is in the Bay Area. And I mean, we would sit on the phone. I'd be on my commute home, and we'd talk for an hour regularly, like 3 or 4 times a week, and just talk about business and the future. I think the idea was there, and it was, yeah, let's try to put some energy in that direction, and maybe this will work out. And personally, I need to put some finances away to make sure that I could float myself through a startup. And so that was kind of a time period where it was like, hey, we knew we wanted to do this, and I still kind of, the transition isn't something that just happens overnight when you're doing a startup. And then, yeah, I think it was just the potential that we have in this area, in this industry. I mean, statistically, they say in the next 10 years there's going to be a demand for 200,000 welders nationwide that we're not going to meet. And that's amazing, right? So you're in this market in the Bay Area where you see a lot of people retiring, selling their fabrication shops because the value of the land is going up. And I mean, there's always going to be other fabrication shops, but it's narrowing, and we're really good at what we do. I think that the stars kind of aligned, and it was time to make it happen.
So I think one thing that I find with entrepreneurs is they always think that there's this magic, like, oh, you started the company, it takes off, and then you see the success. But I think one of the things, Trevor, that it was really thoughtful, obviously from a planning perspective, is that you had a goal to get started at some point. But one of the things you said I think is vital is that you actually socked some money away so that when it didn't go the way that you thought, you could pay your bills, right?
Correct.
And did you have a number in mind? Did you say I need 12 months runway, 14 months runway, 2 years runway?
1 year, 12 months. Yeah, that was the goal.
Yeah, I think that you think that's I don't know. I go back and forth myself. I think having 1 to 2 years is good because nothing will ever go as good as you think it is. But some of these entrepreneurs who believe that they have 3 months of money left, like that probably is not going to work, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you hear the numbers like, 90% of startups fail in the first 10 years, right? Like that's a scary number. But you also don't hear the number of the people that keep trying and you keep putting forward. They do tend to work out, and I think that I mean, we're in a unique position, right? Will's family has been generous enough to let me live here, while we're getting started up. And I mean, the cost of living in the Bay Area is high, so very unique position to say, hey, we have lower overhead and we're going into this. It's a safety buffer, right? And it made more sense than, hey, we have a, $4,000 shop bill every month, and and we're no tools. We went into this with, we both had tools coming into this that, that helps big time. It's not like you're forking all the money over for capital and really putting forward a lot of cash every month.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how much do you think I mean, in effect, although you sell a product, you really are a service, the way that you mark up your materials, I assume, at some rate. And then, but you're really making most of your money, probably, unless you're building some crazy metal, titanium, I don't know what it is, right? The margins are in the service. So in many ways, your startup costs really aren't that significant, and you can start generating money from the day you start, as long as you have business, which it sounds like the demand is high, right?
Yeah. And then what's kind of funny, we'll go back just on skills a little bit, but we both, once we won some of the prizes, were welders. A couple of the companies gave out a welder to each of the winners. So Trevor and I kind of started this whole business on welders that we won, and we were kind of laughing. We still use them today, that that these are welders that we won and they were free to us, but now they've made us, they've built us this company almost. So it's kind of cool to look back on that and see that. But like we said too from the beginning, is we kind of always were welding from when we were kids. So the tooling that we had got us started, and then now we've invested money into getting better tools to make it easier on us. Like we just bought last December, we bought a CNC plasma table that it can fit a 5x, anything that we could throw on the computer. And so that tool alone, we had big plans on that kind of almost becoming a business as well, which it still could, and we still are looking to do that. It's just the time of the day, but it kind of pays for itself in the ease and the efficiency. We could throw something on that, cut it out, and while that's working, we could do other stuff, and it just makes life so much easier. So looking forward, I think that's what we're going to be doing, is investing in the tools and making things easier and quicker to get out. But the startup tools, we were extremely basic, but we've now collected more, so we got plenty of tools that we have at any time to make it easy on us, because that's what the tools do, is just make it better and easier for the job.
To nod to that point, is it also makes us competitive too. I mean, you're playing with people that have been established in the Bay Area, fabricating shops, and they have those tools, right? So you can do something 3 different ways, and to be competitive, I think the tooling really got us there, and to be able to continue to make the profit that we need to make to stay in business, as well as to put a bid out there for the bigger jobs, and then to get accepted because we're able to compete. I think there's a lot to be said to the right tool for the right job.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm a tech guy here in Silicon Valley, so and usually that's the discussion, right? Which is, it's always tech. But I think living in Half Moon Bay, the interesting part is that I think we had a hardware company, right? We had GoPro, we had Otwala drink company, and now as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, wow, like this is actually, there's a huge demand for welders in the area, and what a startup, there's a welding startup, which you just it's not something you hear every day, right? I mean, it's a really unique story, and I think it's fun that you actually won the welder, the welder itself. I mean, what a way to fund your company. I always hear like there's ways to get started, and I think some people in the service business think that, oh well, service business isn't worth as much or whatever. But service business, at least you can you can make really good margins, and you can start charging from day one.
Yeah, totally.
So
and that's what.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
It's your show.
Yeah, it's just like we were saying. I mean, now we've bought another welder, so like the smaller ones would only get us, so far. So now we just invest into the bigger welder, which is twice as fast, twice as much power that we could now do bigger jobs with, and so that kind of is just the progression. But yeah, I didn't want to stick on too.
It's part of our business and it's huge. And to kind of touch base on that, in our business plan, to jump back to that, was, hey, we want to do structural steel, right? I mean, there's the cost of the materials is high, the labor isn't as high for that type of work, where some of the ornamental ironwork is very fine and you're just so many different bends and cuts and welds. But the steel work, there's more to production to it, and you bid those jobs, right? And so we had talked about that in our business planning in December of last year. But to get there is that welder, right? Because you need to weld per these certifications and requirements from the AWS, which is law for certain types of structures. You have to have a certain type of machine. So I think the tooling really plays into the work that you're able to do.
Yeah.
In the planning, right? We planned for the structural steel and we planned for the tool and then made it happen. And now here we are doing structural steel as well as the
it was a very purposeful place that you were shooting for.
Yeah. And then we kind of just, worked it into our plan, just said, okay, we got some money now, let's buy this welder and hopefully we'll get a job to pay for it. And so it kind of just works out if you plan it enough, correct? It's just planning, like our business plan, and acting on it is the biggest thing, is making it happen. So sometimes it's hard to say, oh man, we got to go, buy this $25,000 piece of equipment to save us time, but time and money, it equals out eventually. So it's a fine balance, I think, of what you can get by with rather than be efficient with, because we could still do the jobs we're doing now with a machine that we already had, but this is twice as fast, so we're able to do twice as much jobs with that machine. So over the long run, it kind of pays itself off.
I think that's important that people don't understand. When you buy machines that make you more efficient, it's also about is making that machine. You got to keep that machine working, right? Like you're saying, that's plasma machine you have. The key to really getting an ROI out of that thing is to keep it working 24/7. It need not stop. But I want to go back on something, Trevor. And I'm completely biased because I'm the guy who always says that entrepreneurs need business plans, and entrepreneurs always tell me that it's in there. Not always, obviously, because you two planned it, but a lot of entrepreneurs say it's in my head, Brandon. And, then I say, well, let's sit down and can you write it on a napkin for me? And they can't answer the questions because it's not all in their head. And until it's on paper, you can't see it all, right? But you said in December, do you do a end of the year shutdown meeting to say, hey,
pretty much. I mean, we don't completely shut down, but we spend a good solid week where, we're in the office, and it kind of, it helps that work slows a little bit, or we saw it slow last year in the rainy season. And we were able to spend that good solid week of brainstorming and looking at our finances from the last year and getting ready for the tax season. So we were ahead of the game, December, putting our, punching all the receipts and invoices in, and we keep track of, but you really dive into it.
So do you plan that week, Trevor? Do you, or you and Will say, okay, Monday we're going to go over this, Tuesday what does that look like for I call it a shutdown, but and your business doesn't shut down, but effectively you're down to a minimal operation so that you can actually take a look without being in the day-to-day.
I think this is key for anyone with a business plan, is to review it. And it is a living document. So I think the first thing that we do in that week is review the last year's revised business plan, because it's it's always changing. So it's nice too. You can go back to the first one. The next year you have a revised plan, and so the goal is to revisit the business plan, um, and all your financials, and look at the efficiency of the business, and forecasts for the future, and kind of come up with a game plan for how you're going to attack the next year. It's a lot of strategy. So I think it's you start revisiting, and then you look at the critical points. I think you start to see they start to come to the surface from the past year. What are the critical things we need to talk about? And then from there, it's brainstorming. That's one of my favorite activities since I was a little kid. Is that everything can go on the table, nothing's discounted until the end. So you spend this time where yeah, just ideas pour in, and then you find the best one that way for moving forward. If it be purchasing a piece of equipment, or growth. We're looking at hopefully growing to having a few employees in the next couple of years. But to get there, you have to look at marketing and branding. Are we doing a good job there? Should we invest in that? And it kind of just goes based on this plan, running through it and then touching base on the critical points that need adjustment.
So one thing I'm interested in is you both, you've got a plan, you've got sort of a way forward. The fact is that you're both welders. So you're welding, you're planning, you're recording all your receipts. It sounds like you doing some of your own accounting, and then you've got to sell. So how do you balance all of this between you to figure out how you're going to do that? Because when you're small, it's really hard. You've got to market and sell by the same time while you're producing.
Yeah. It's kind of not to really push on COVID, but we had this plan to go out and market and shake hands. I think shaking hands with people and other businesses is the best way to market yourself, if it's not just word of mouth. That kind of happened, but we really have grown word of mouth wise. But we do split work up. There's I don't know the right.
Yeah, between ourselves, like Trevor, like we said, doing the computer work, and he's really good at the business planning and accounting, and the design and stuff. And then so the way that we make it efficient is Trevor's kind of doing that in the background. Sometimes he's in the office while I'm in the shop, and then whenever the paperwork gets done, he jumps into the shop and helps out with that as well. But at least we're continually, we're still working, getting the work done, and then we kind of meet up every morning and go over our day, go over our week, and just come together and figure out how we're going to get it done. So I think just spending half an hour in the morning, or even at night, we will text each other, call each other, and just say, hey, we got this just came up and we need it done by Wednesday, or however it is. And so by doing that little bit of planning, or even if it's just over text, like, hey, we got tomorrow, how are we going to get that done? And then if it's Trevor picking up materials while I'm working in the shop, and we're getting two things done at once, which is nice having a partner, because we could bounce off of each other. He could do something, I could do something. We're doing two things at once essentially. So it works out pretty good, I think, for that part.
And talking about partnerships, one of the most interesting things that I've seen is that customers, we appeal to the customers differently, right? We are two different people, and so they're drawn to each one of us in a different way. So you feel that in those first interactions, that that they start asking one of us more questions, and we kind of let that happen naturally, and then we each run with the clients that kind of are drawn to each of us. So there's times where we're even splitting clients as point of contacts. Mm-hmm. We're fielding separate calls and then just having the conversation like, hey, this is what's going on, and then we kind of game plan before either of us responds to those clients. it's really cool. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of funny that happens. I don't know what it is either, but it's just I don't know, hard to explain, I guess. But yeah, it's totally true. We'll have both of our phones will be ringing at the same time, and it's two different people, or and then even working on a job, we'll be like, okay, Trevor, well, can you call him and just check in with this, or vice versa. Will, can you call him and see what the updates are? So I think that part is kind of cool too, because it's not one of us answering the phone, and anytime a customer could call Trevor or call me if they can't get a hold of us. Good having two people there, and it works out pretty good, I think.
Don't you think that takes some level of true trust? Because it can be hard, right? You're in this partnership, and you have to be willing to let go of that relationship in the sense of trusting your partner to go with that. Um, you two seem to get along, and for all of our listeners, the first time I ever met either of these guys is that on the Zoom call. I've heard a lot about them living in Half Moon Bay and from local people, but you seem to trust each other deeply, and to have that understanding is a pretty mature relationship. What's the magic? Like, what's the key to that? Because that doesn't always happen, and that's usually why businesses fail, quite frankly, is one is people. Yeah, I mean, you guys seem to have that flow, if you will.
I think it's the 4-letter word, time.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going on maybe 8 years, somewhere around the 8-year mark of have worked together. And really, we do trust each other. I think friendship first, and then business, and knowing how each other works.
Yeah, I think that it's just you trust each other. We bonded all this time, and now we know that if Trevor doesn't get it done or I don't get it done, it's on ourselves. And so it's challenging at some points. And like Trevor says, we have different ways of doing things, but you just kind of look at it and balance it. And then obviously, if bad mood that day, you just get the work done and go home. But it's fine. We get along just fine. And like Trevor said, it's time and just relying on that person and trusting that person, because that's all you can do. So I think it's just, you have to.
I think it's good advice. I think it's just like dating.
Yeah, totally. That's what I was going to say.
You're not going to get married. I mean, you can if you first 3 weeks. My wife and I, quote unquote, dated for I think 14 years. Some people might say that's excessive, but I'd suggest that after 24, it's probably a good indication that you know what you're doing. And I think that's the case with entrepreneurship and look, I've made the mistake. I think you guys are lucky in many ways to have found that, and in many ways work together on someone else's tab, so to speak, even if it's going to school to get to know that. But I think it's important, and you guys seem to do that. How do you my question along building up to this, because you both seem to get along, you both sort of understand each other. I can tell you're definitely different in some respects, but how do you resolve a conflict when you're in a partnership?
Thing too extreme. I mean, there's differences, I think, in the way say we look at money, or even just a project, because a simple project could, like Trevor said earlier, there's 3 different ways. Well, sometimes there's 100 different ways, and if we think one way needs to be done, I think it's just like being married, like you said, is you just kind of come to a middle ground, and either have a middle ground or just have the nerve to say, okay, we're going to do this your way, and that's what's going to happen. But sometimes it is a thing where you, I don't know, conflict, but we get it done in the end, so that's kind of all that matters, and we move past it and just say, okay, well, that one's done. And there's jobs that you're like, okay, we need to get this thing done so it's out of our hair. But I don't know if you want to speak on that too.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's like it's case to case, and some things it's maybe we have a conflict of thought process, or the way something should be built, like Will said, and and it's almost like the best one wins. You bring two things to the table, and it's like, okay, we can both look at it. We're not so held on to our idea that we're not going to let it go. It's like, let's look at this for the best one, and then we move forward very quickly that way. And then to the financial aspect, yeah, I think it's kind of the same way, or you mull it over, you talk, you really do talk through it, and have a debate about it, and we listen to each other, and then make a decision based on, on the talk and the discussion.
Yeah, I don't know that you guys actually, I think it just happened maybe, but one of the things that you said is really important there is that you have the debate. It's always personal, but you have to learn to not take it personally. And then you have to agree that you're moving forward in a way, and you can't hold, talking about this earlier this morning with somebody, you need to be on board as a team so that you don't say, I told you so. And I think
totally.
you guys do in that way. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so as well. It's we're not fighting against, if there is a conflict, which it doesn't happen very often, but if there is a conflict, we're going towards the same goal in the end. So I think just whichever way we choose to get there is kind of the main thing. And then there's like we said, a million ways to do one thing. So it's just finding that and finding the balance of which route we're going to take, and then just taking it, and usually it works out. So that's the best thing.
Well, I want to say congratulations, because I didn't pay you guys, for everybody listening, to tee up that you need a business plan and how important it is. But you guys are both a testament, and Dexter Welding is, and the success so far, as planning works, staying to the plan, and having a good partnership to execute that plan. What would be 3 from both of you, not 6, but you can each figure it out, share in it, are 3 HPTs, I call them high percentage tips, for fellow entrepreneurs out there that are looking to either to start a service business or any business really, in that way?
Take the first one.
I think that business plan, we've been talking about it. I think it's crucial to a startup business, at least having it all written down and something you can revisit. And we look at ours and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. We wanted to focus on this in the big picture. Let's get back to that. And most people know what a business plan is, but there's a mission statement, a focus of what you're trying to accomplish in the big picture. And then to tag onto that is branding and a professional image. I think is key moving forward in the business world.
And then I think goals on that as well, which is in your business plan. But having your goals and looking at them is because if you look at your goals, you know where you have to get to achieve them. So I think that's huge on the business plan side of that.
One more, I guess, patience. With the growing business, there's times where we talk about, oh, let's just take the next step by the next thing, then and then we had a game plan, we're going to do that later. It's just not going to happen overnight. And patience is key.
I think that's a good, and patience is trust, right? Trust in yourself, in the business, in things that will come, because I think we all want to jump ahead. Of course, we're entrepreneurs. You want to go get it. But I think that's a key thing. And I think over time, as you get more experience, you realize that if you are patient, it will come. But you actually have to see that happen to believe that it will happen. So it's like this chicken or the egg. But if you do it, I think that's true. Well, how would people find you to try to get a quote from you on a project for any sort of welding?
I think first thing, go to our website, dexterwelding.com. Phone number, there's a form you can fill out if you want to shoot us a quick question. Our email's on there if you have something that you really want to send us pictures and an explanation to. Yeah.
And then we have an Instagram. We don't post too often on it. It's something that we want to do, and just don't have the time of the day, or we don't pay attention to it enough. But definitely Instagram, and it's a goal of mine as well, as Trevor's as well, is to get posted on that and just get online to show people projects, not only just show them what we can do, but like what we have done in the past as well, which there's pictures on the website as well. But
well, cool. We can, and I think you are at Dexter Welding on Instagram, right?
yeah, yep, at Dexter Welding.
Well, hey guys, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to do this podcast. I'm excited. Maybe I'll get down there and check out your facility on one of my bike rides when I'm headed down there.
Yeah, totally.
And wish you the very best of success in 2021.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.